Let's go. One of my great favorite songs. Let's get it started. Black Eyed Peas, I just love it. So let's get it started in here. And let me tell you a little bit about myself and let you know this. This is meant to be an experiential class. I'm going to give you the opportunity not just to listen to me, to learn intellectually, but to integrate it so that you can, if you so choose, because that's up to you, you can just be a spectator, that's okay. But I want to let you have an experience of the power of the knowledge that I'm going to be sharing with you to help you move a step further in facing and replacing your buried anger. And you could replace the word anger with your buried frustration, hatred, resentment, doesn't matter what it is. In truth, there's only basically two emotions, and we'll talk about that. But you're either at peace and feel safe, or you're not. Very simple. And for the last 35 years, I've been involved in this field at the origin of epigenetics, where I began my studies in earnest back in 1972. And at that time, the word epigenetics was unknown. The things that I was being involved in were based on psychosomatic psychology and many other different types of psychologies that have been around for a long time. And we began to understand the deeper biological interface of your mind, your emotions, your thoughts with the body. And so that was my introduction some 50 years ago. I've been involved in this field for all of that time, except there was a section there where my attention went more into business and management consulting. But for 35 of that 50 years, I've been very actively involved. And in the meantime, the field of epigenetics has blossomed, so much so that there's many people looking for information and Googling it. I've written a couple of books on it. I have a new course. I have 2 courses now on Udemy on epigenetics. And I developed the science because epigenetics, very simply stated, is how and why your genes express themselves the way they do. We are not hardwired. The influences of our external and internal environment sends a vibrational, energetic signature of one of 2 things. A, I feel safe, feel stressed, threatened, worried. And literally, and we can get rid of all the other different shades of gray in between of the emotions, because besides, we can call it trust, we can call it inner peace, we can call it love, we can call it joy. There's many different words for that state, that emotional state of being. And you're either in one or the other. And even if you just have a little, just a little stressed out, just a little bit worried, no big deal. But it's kind of like pregnancy. You either are or you aren't. You're either pregnant with stress, and that stress has its effects on you that sends a signal to your cells, and the receptors on every cell that you have are vibrating. And when they feel the energy that comes from you based on your perception of the situation, because it has nothing to do with what really is happening. You do not respond to the really happening of the moment. You respond based on your perception of it, your belief, your experiences from the past, your interpretation. And that perception says either I feel safe, I breathe deep, I feel grounded, I'm calm, my mind is clear, or not. And anger is one of those particular, very powerful, explosive inner emotions. And again, it has many different shades. Anxiety is a shade of anger because you're not at peace. So either you're at peace, feel safe, or you don't. And if you don't, the more we repress it, the more we deny it, the more we ignore it, the more we bury it down and we hold it chronically in our nervous system, in our muscles, and we create different types of neural networks in each of the three brains. And I want you to understand right off the start that you have three, not one, you have three brains. And when these brains are out of alignment, what happens is you create a inner stress, an inner type of holding on to whatever that tension is that's being experienced between these three brains. And I'm sorry, it's not bigger. I thought it would be much bigger. But the three brains we have is in the head, our cerebral brain, in the heart, our heart brain, and in the gut brain. Now, these three brains are connected by the vagus nerve. And there is what I call the intranet that connects them. So even though they're separate, and that means brain is neural connections that are operating in a different field than the rest of your body's cells, because these are all very electronically moving information between the synaptic connections. The neural networks get developed, and through repetition, you create these neural networks inside. And if you're in a constant state of fear, of anger, of anxiety, of aggravation, of antagonism, well, guess what? There's going to be a condensation, a constriction. What happens in the cardiovascular system is something called ischemia. And ischemia is a tension, a constriction, a narrowing of the cardiovascular system so that the flow of oxygen becomes limited. The flow of blood becomes limited. And the limitations that start happening sends a message of threat. And that message of threat goes through signaling to your endocrine system. And before you know it, your endocrine system is pumping out more adrenaline, more cortisol, higher levels of blood sugar. And now all of your organs start responding that way. And you know what it feels like to get angry. You know what it feels like to get anxiety. It is a tense moment of built up energies that doesn't feel good. It's anxiety. It makes me nauseous. It makes me worried. My heart is beating fast. I'm breathing faster. I'm sweating a little bit. I'm looking around because I'm just anxious that something bad is going to come, because anxiety is a view in your mind, a perception that you have that situations are going to be dangerous to you, threatening to you, stressful to you, against your survival. And it's just a view, a picture in your mind, a decision that you make on how you evaluate situations. And the body responds immediately. And most of you, what we do is we learn to either bury it deep inside, and we do that a lot with drug use, to be able to disconnect from the body, alcohol abuse, disconnect from the body, watching too much television, disconnect from the feelings of the body, doing anything in an addictive way, which means you're just doing too much, including staying online, and whether you're surfing the net or whether you're just completely fixated into your social media, it is an effort to stay away from the feelings in your body that don't feel good. So all of a sudden, all sorts of coping mechanisms come in, all sorts of compensations come in, and that which we didn't look at and release gets stuck there, and it now sends a continual message. And this is what we want to talk about. And in my life, I've been fortunate to, over these last nearly 50 years, be able to watch the development of this field to learn how you can gain mastery over it. What can you do to shift biologically what is happening? What can you do to shift mentally and emotionally what is happening? How can you use different tools and strategies in order to be able to know how and what to do to take whatever negative emotional state that you have, whether it's anger or anxiety or depression, but to be able to master for yourself that human interactive system that you call your human existence, so that you can maintain a level of comfort, of empowerment, because as I'll explain to you, every thought you have, every emotion you have, every body position that you have, every action that you take creates a biological reaction. 50,000 thoughts a day is what the estimate is. The problem is we only have consciousness of about 5,000 of them. So that means 45,000 thoughts a day are injecting you with some type of biochemical response based upon the quality of that thought. Is the quality, I'm safe, I'm in control, I feel I can handle anything, or is it I'm worried about the future, I don't know what's coming next, there's too much uncertainty, there's too much anxiety, I've just had a major loss in my life, I'm physically ill, I'm afraid I'm going to die, I'm afraid this is going to happen, I just broke up with a relationship, I've been isolated in my goddamn house so long, I'm going completely insane, and I have people living with me that's making me even more insane. I got to get the hell out of there and do something different. And enough of this online Zoom programs. I need to go out, and I haven't been out in nature, at the beach, in the mountains, having fun, connecting to a tree, connecting to the ocean, because I'm just too scared, because who knows? COVID hasn't gone away. I'm in fear. I see that, that's perceptual. And if you say that to yourself, you experience it to yourself, and what you believe, you achieve, you make happen. And this is what I saw over the years through all the development that I went through studying epigenetic-based neuroscience, utilizing many, many different areas of how the human mind works in an integrated, holistic basis. And from this, I created the key prescriptions. You hear me talk about the key prescriptions, because there's just like this. If you have all of a sudden low blood sugar and they find out you're diabetic, you get a prescription in order to be able to get something to raise your blood sugar levels. You get insulin, okay? And that's something that you can judge by a biological test in order to measure the levels of different chemicals and sugar in your blood. And that says, aha, you're way too low here. And maybe that's why you're feeling low energy, or why you're sleeping all the time, or you just don't really feel really good about life and you're depressed. You just don't have the energy because you're missing this vital element inside. And so we intervene and we do something to deal with it. But that's doing a biological test. The problem is, with emotions, depression, anxiety, insomnia, anger, rage, they don't do a biological test. They don't take your blood test and say, well, you know, these neurotransmitters are low inside. And we find out that, oh my gosh, you know, you're low on Prozac and you don't have enough Adderall in your system. So we're going to prescribe that. And now we're going to change your vibration and messages to your signals. And we're going to sit there and just override the natural intelligence of your body, mind, which works together. because current paradigm is the body is the unconscious mind. And if you are stressed, you might deny it mentally and say, no, everything's going good. But if I look at you and I feel the stress, if you feel the tightness in your shoulders, in your lower back, if you're not sleeping good, if you're not eating good, if you're not feeling happy and wanting to interact with other people and enjoying life, if you're not having fun and feeling happy, guess what? You're stressed. Even though you might be in this situation for so long, it's so chronic that you think this is who you are and this is how life is. No, that's how your life is. And maybe that's what you've seen growing up, modeling those around you who shared their stress levels with you, and you've never really seen really deep, profound peace and joy every day, living in that state. That state of wonder, that state of peace. Because that can only happen when you acknowledge there is another way and you look inside your body and get in touch and connect with that. We're going to do a little bit of that. I'm going to show you how to do that. But so I created the key prescriptions, and from that came the science of quantum embodiment, how and what to do in order to deal with all of these different types of issues that you may run into mentally, emotionally, and physically, and in your relationships. Of here are the steps. Use these steps and they work. That's what the prescription is. Take these steps, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to teach you one of them now. This to me, and someone asked me, they said to me, Brian, if you can teach one of your quantum embodiment strategies to another individual, that you get one chance that they can apply in their life to maximize their health, their wellness, their creativity, their life extension, only one, what would you teach? And I'm going to teach it to you now. It's called the pause. The pause. If you notice, after I'm speaking, I'm pausing. What I'd like you all to do is to do this consciously right now and pause. Imagine just stepping back from where you are and taking a slow, deep breath through your nose, holding it for a second or two, and then release it. And then do another slow breath through your nose, hold it for a couple of seconds, and then out through your nose. Pause. This disconnects you from the ego, fear, anger, guilt that always speaks first. You have been trained to react in life. You have been trained not to take time for yourself to really consider the different choices you have on how to respond to a situation. When you pause, you can look at what you were going to say or what you were going to do. Step back and ask yourself, am I sharing peace? Is this a connecting choice that will connect us together and bring us closer? That will share peace, compassion, understanding, acceptance. These are all similar words of allowing someone to be that and to come from a place of joined interest. And when we pause just for a couple of seconds, we disconnect that ego reactivity. This is a quantum embodiment tool, something I talk a lot about in my book, my first book on this particular area, and that is accessing your inner pharmacy. And all these things, by the way, accessing your inner pharmacy and my books on epigenetics are available at Amazon.com. The best way to do it is download it to your Kindle, or if you're in the United States, you can order it. You can order it from any country, but it takes a while very often for Amazon to be delivered out of the country. The pause. It's a key prescription for management of your emotional state. And I've been so fortunate to learn from these masters from around the world. And I spent years and years traveling around the world, to Asia and to Africa and to India and throughout the United States and Mexico, and oh my gosh. And I integrated these techniques and tools on many different levels, because quantum embodiment looks at the mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and relationship interactions of you and how they're all interconnected. You can't have health in one without sharing it. You can't have illness in one without sharing it. And so each one needs to be brought into a center, into a balance. And that is the goal and purpose of quantum embodiment. So let's look at how we do what we really want to do. And the question that came to me, how can we synchronize our three brains if our system has this ischemia episode? How can we recover? That's the answer. Pause. Now, that's just one beginning. Now, you would then utilize, now that you kind of, you brought down the intensity level, you can breathe again. And now you might want to get into some deep quantum breathing and maybe do some meditation, maybe do some exercise, maybe utilize what might be an important forgiveness episode that you need to go here because you've been stuck in this issue for so long. That's where you then start knowing, and just so you know, in the book, there's 122 different tools and strategies, each focusing on different levels, and a day-by-day program that you can go on in order to retrain your mind to create new neural connection networks in your head brain, in your heart brain, and in your enteric brain, your gut brain. We want to have them in balance, because if you are out of balance with yourself, if your head says one thing and your heart feels something else, and your gut has this other type of sense, this intuitiveness that puts yourself into conflict with yourself, remember, your first, and bring your three brains into alignment, into balance, into peace. And you have to use different tools to address each one of them. So let's give a little experience of this. What I'd like you to do, I hope you have some space where you are, and please do not do this if you're driving a car or piloting a plane. Please do not do the exercises. Sit back and listen, and when you're back in a safe space, you can then do these. I want you to just step back for a moment and just close your eyes and think of maybe something in your life right now that's frustrating. Do you have any frustrating things in your life right now? Just put your attention on it. Notice the quality of your thoughts about it. Frustrating, a little aggravating, annoying. Notice your body. When you think about this thing that frustrates you, where do you feel it most in your body? In your gut, throat, jaw, chest, back, all over. Notice the impact that just bringing your attention to the thought of frustration, what that does to your body. Notice if you're now possibly clenching your jaw a little bit. Notice if you've shallowed on your breathing and holding your breath because you're frustrated. Can you see that? Now, what I want you to do intentionally, I want you to intensify that feeling and make it even stronger and more intense. So wherever you're feeling it, intensify it. Allow yourself to face and embrace this emotion, this mindset, this feeling of frustration. And if you don't have something currently frustrating you, feel free to let your mind think about something in the past that frustrated you. I want you to understand what frustration does to you because it creates constriction. It shuts down your breathing depth. Biologically, it begins to release higher levels of blood sugar. Frustration is not getting what you want, when you want it, how you want it, or as much as you want it. And that idea in your mind of what it should be, supposed to be, expected to be, look at that. Don't you, before you were frustrated, look in your mind and ask yourself, what was my expectation in this situation? What did I demand from this situation that I didn't get, or I'm not getting when I want it, how I want it, as much as I want it? I want you to look inside yourself and understand before this experience of constriction, you had a picture that you compared what happened or what is happening or what you believe is going to happen to a picture of what you want to happen, what you wish would happen. You have a picture in your mind. It's a wish, a hope. And because you're not having existence turn out the way that you pictured it, wanted it, hoped it, demanded it, expected it, you have frustration. It's two different pictures in your mind with a dialogue, and that moment says you're not safe because not getting what you want, when you want it, how you want it, all of a sudden creates a sense of threat, stress, disconnection. And that one simple thing sends a vibrational signature of this frustration to the receptors on your cells, which then creates an enzyme based upon your frustration, your stress, your anxiety. So it sends this enzyme through the cell that then connects with the nucleus of the cell, and it sends this message: frustration, fear, anger, not getting what I want, danger, not safe. And all of a sudden, the DNA communicates with the genes because it's all of this, you see, this enzyme that it's received, and this enzyme is an enzyme of frustration. And so the body now gets a signal, danger. We need to create different proteins, amino acids, that is going to deal with this. So since it's a danger, we need to increase blood sugar levels. We need to increase cortisol levels. And it starts assembling amino acid chains to do that. It's received the signal of potential danger, and it's responding with those that we often call the fight, flight, freeze, or faint response. It's preparing the body to deal with that danger. And so whether just from frustration, you now take your parasympathetic nervous system offline. That's what keeps you healthy. That's what keeps your immune system functioning at the highest levels. And now it has this message, and your sympathetic system comes online. Your autonomic nervous system goes into hard drive. And all of a sudden, you're breathing faster, your heart beats faster, and different chemicals that were coming from the parasympathetic system get shut down. And this particularly, by the way, is controlled by your enteric brain. The enteric brain in your gut produces 80 to 90% of the serotonin. And when you feel your personal power is threatened, we hold that in our gut. We have a gut reaction. It's instinctive. Your enteric brain is the first brain that develops in your body. It is the brain of survival. It is the brain of intuition. It is the brain that connects you to the earth and reminds you of the physical nature of your system, which is mainly water and other chemicals, but 70% water. And water has certain responses to the energy it receives and the enzymes that then move through the blood system and move into the cells and communicate and let the genes know how to express themselves. There's 3 basic responses. And there's the response that turns your gene on to express it. And it can express it from a little bit more to a lot more, or to silence it, or to leave it alone. Those are the 3 responses. And you see, this constantly is happening. This is what your environment is so important, because your environment, if it doesn't feel safe, if you're perceiving it to be dangerous, stressful, not fulfilling, not satisfying, all of a sudden, it keeps building these chronic holding patterns in your muscle systems, in your nervous systems. It creates these neural networks in your brain, and these receptors hang out on the cells to create chronic health conditions. And that leads to diabetes, to cancer, to heart disease. You see, before these illnesses and disease show up in a doctor's office where you have the symptoms, they've been going on for years. That's why it's so important. The sooner you face and replace these buried issues of anger that stay suspended in time, because that's how the unconscious mind body works. It's suspended in time. If you haven't processed it and circulated it and brought it back to balance, that means it gets more and more intense condensation, and it creates more and more gravitational pull, because remember, our whole body system is electromagnetically run. And that's the fastest system that we have. We also have a biochemical system. And the biochemical system moves through your body at about 3 to 4 miles an hour. The electromagnetic system moves through your body at 186,000 miles per second. In 1 second, one electrical impulse from the brain or from your nervous system can move through your body hundreds of millions of times in 1 second. And every thought is an electrical impulse. So just think, those 50,000, they're not useless thoughts. Somebody here wrote 50,000 useless thoughts on and on. No, they're not useless thoughts. Without those thoughts, there's no survival. That is the unconscious mind doing and processing everything that goes on. I mean, I was coming back, I went out for breakfast and I brought back some chai latte from Chai Tea for my son. I'm staying in his apartment here in South Florida. And I realized the amazing levels of unconscious mind patterns that I have learned over the years automatically, that I don't have to think about, to walk carrying 2 full cups of this chai tea. Now, it seems very simple, but I have to keep it steady so it doesn't shake and knock the cover off. So while I'm walking a distance, I have to balance to keep my hand steady. 2, the pressure that I put on this cup, I can't squeeze it too much. If I squeeze it too much, it'll knock the top off of, and then all the liquids will come out. So I had to squeeze it enough so it doesn't drop, but not too much so that all of a sudden, right, I can carry it forward without spilling and knocking off the top. Now, if I had to consciously go through that calculations of the pressure of being able to create the stability in my body, as well as remember where I'm going, okay, how to get there, how to use the key to see how many things are going on. And it's all going on because of unconscious thinking, training, that this knowledge has become habit patterns. And all habit patterns are is electromagnetic patterns of fields. And it's been repeated over and over again, and it creates a template to repeat it. And it creates these special neural networks in the brain that is moving at 186,000 miles per second in order to process this information and coordinate it with all 3 brains, with all of the mini brains of the endocrine system, with all of the nervous system, with all of the cells. Holy mackerel, what an incredible system that we have. And it's all run epigenetically. Because the moment that fear, stress sets in, my body shapes itself and responds one way. The moment I'm at peace and I'm calm, you know that. Take a breath if you haven't let go of your frustration yet. Close your eyes and just think of a relaxing place. Now, I position myself in the dining room at my son's place intentionally so I can look outside at the ocean, because we're right here at the beach. And so I'm filling my energy with this beautiful picture of the waves, of the beach, of the sky, of the clouds. Surrounding me is also, he's put many flowers and orchids and really interesting creative paintings that just stimulate me with colors and designs and shapes. Wow. So I'm filling myself with the vibrations of where my attention goes. Put your attention on this memory or something in your room. Maybe there's a picture of a fond memory that you have. And you see, you can then send that message of relaxation to yourself just as well. Now, if you have any questions, please feel free to send it to me on chat. I want you to really get this. And we're going to move it up another level. I just want you to understand that you create the biological responses inside your body to create emotional states in mind because of the connectivity of your 3 brains and your mind, which surrounds all of them. The mind is not the brain. The mind is an electromagnetic field of energy that surrounds the body to keep us connecting at that 186,000 miles per second rate, where through the bloodstream, again, 3 to 4 miles per hour movement. So the instantaneous response that we get, sometimes it almost appears as if we respond before something happens, because before we're aware and conscious of something, the body's already responded to it. Conscious thinking, and this has been a scientific study, it's quite interesting. Conscious thinking comes about 1/2 a second after the sensation that you already had, that you then interpret and label based on the sensation. So before you think, you already had the experience of the sensation, and it's over.
Você não quer levar.
And then you have a thought about it. Crazy. But sometimes it's so close, it seems in the other order. So let's take another step. Are you ready? Close your eyes, take a deep breath. And in your mind, picture something that makes you angry. As you do, I want you to look at the picture. What is that picture of? Is it a movie? Is it something that happened that you're repeating, or is it your imagination projecting something similar happening in the future of something bad that happened in the past? What's the picture? Write it down. I hope you all have pens and paper and taking notes. What's the picture? What's the internal dialogue? What do you say in that picture? This is essential. You say, oh, I hate them. I can't believe this. Those fucking idiots, look what they did to me. You really hurt me. You abandoned me. You rejected me. You fired me. You failed me. Whatever it is, put the all in. What do you say to yourself about that? And what do you feel in the body and where? When you feel anger, where do you feel it? In your heart, in your gut, in your throat, in all three? And what is it? Is it a pressure? Is it a tension? Is it a heat? Is it a coldness? Is it an emptiness, a numbness, an agitation? Is it intermittent in the way that it pulsates inside of you? Do you feel like you just want to reach out and just punch somebody, beat the shit out of them, strangle them, kick them in the balls, or any other? Look at it and don't minimize it. Acknowledge where you are and how that you deal with this. Do not bullshit yourself, because you cannot heal it unless you face it. Then you can begin to use the tools to replace it. But you first have to be aware, awareness. And these are things that get buried inside. I just finished, it was so fantastic. I did my first in-person workshop in 2.5 years. This Saturday here in South Florida, an all-day workshop. It's part of a 2-day workshop. I was able to do 1 day with this group. And I thrive on that. And I, more than anything else, I love to work one-on-one in a room with people. You never know what's going to come up. And I'm taking them through some of these types of things. And they all go back to pictures. And they all go back to memories. Because remember, this is all in your memory. It's in your mind. If you didn't have that memory, you wouldn't have that feeling, right? Would you be angry like you are without that memory? You're angry because of the memory and the projection. Now, remember, those things might not be something that happened directly to you. Anger doesn't come just from threat against you personally. It comes from threat against someone you love, someone you care for, someone you identify with. And lots of that anger will maybe even be something you saw on TV where people got destroyed and hurt, and you identify with them and you feel that energy because you have something like that inside of you you haven't looked at yet. Maybe the memories of your father shouting at your mother, abusing her emotionally, verbally, physically, or one of your other siblings. What I'm saying is it doesn't have to be directly at you. All it has to be is in your field of awareness to feel that vibration of threat, because anger is a threatening or violent state, something that incenses you, something that displeases you so much that you want to reject and fight back at it because in your mind, it's not good for your survival, not good for your ego identity. And it's almost always about ego. Wow, they didn't show up. They broke my heart. No, they didn't break your heart. You gave it all that power. Remember, you give every thought all the meaning and power it has. You. And that's why it takes a lot of deep working with someone individually who's a therapist who can make you look underneath it. Because I'll tell you what, whatever's coming up for you when you're writing down is not it. It has something to do with it. But as we worked on, as I then took the group, and we do a lot of very intensive processing. And if you want to do this, you can do this now. Now that you've seen the picture, felt it in your body, listened to the internal dialogue, close your eyes and embody it completely and intensively. Take that anger and be with it, embrace it, and face it. Right now, if you have to get out of your seat, get out of your seat. If you have to stand up and stomp on the floor and scream bloody murder or hit some pillows or yell out loud, do it. And do it with intensity. Of course, keep your computer muted. I love to hear it in a group setting. And what will happen is if you allow yourself to do this, you see, you can automatically regress yourself. This is called the quantum embodiment regression. And by reforming yourself of that startle reflex, of the pain, of the anger, of the fear that you held back then in the past, it will then reignite those codes that were impressed there back then, both on your brains and on your cells. And all of a sudden ignite so as to have a catalyzing event so that you can face, embrace, trace, and then replace whatever that wound was, whatever that judgment was. This is the process. Dr. John Sarno, one of my great mentors for many years, if you've ever read Mind Body Prescription or seen some of his work, is incredible, incredible surgeon and professor in New York. He calls this TMS, tension myositis syndrome. That's what the constriction, that is what happens on the ischemia. If it's chronic, that means it's something in an event that happened long ago and you haven't released it yet. And that's what anger is. Anger isn't about the present moment. Anger is always a regressive state of some danger or some threat or some trauma that happened in the past to you or someone that you identify with close to you. It may be even something you did to someone else and you hurt someone else and made them angry. And then later you felt that guilt and felt angry at yourself for making those mistakes and hurting somebody because you realized you didn't make a connecting choice. You forgot to pause. So pausing allows us to break that autonomic nervous system, that reactive response, and step back so we don't have the past controlling our present and dictating the future. Through the pause and then other tools to then take whatever came up for you. You see, it's a gift what just came up for you. Whatever pictures you came up is a gift. If you then intensified the embodiment of it, that's even better. Okay, maybe it even took you to an earlier trauma. Without fail, in the entire group of people at the workshop, and I had them all go through something similar to this and then get into a circle and everybody to embody fully with intensity what that anger and that feeling was from that memory without fail. It all then took them to an earlier moment. And as just one example, I remember, she says, yeah, I remember at 15 and I was so angry and my parents were going through a divorce and my father left me and I felt so betrayed and abandoned and I just wanted to scream, you know, how can you leave us? How can you leave us? Don't you know we need you? Don't you know we need you? And then all of a sudden, I mean, and that's, by the way, what she did, going over that event of the divorce in psychology for years. You see, if you don't have the right tools to break into the ice of the unconscious mind and go back to what's underneath it, then you'll never get to the place where the seed was planted. You won't be able to pull out the roots. And the science of quantum embodiment looks to get to the roots and pull them out, and then look at the underlying soil of the family system to make sure that the soil for the roots to go into are not toxic and not filled with this types of trauma from past generations that have been passed down to you in something called epigenetic tags. And there is something, just so you be aware of, it's not the title of our workshop, called intergenerational trauma, where these traumas are not even your traumas, they're of your mother, of your father, of your grandparents. And if they've been refugees and immigrants, and if they've gone through severe prejudices or hunger, or gone through other types of financial ruin or other types of harm in their community, understand those generations, those enzymes I'm talking about here actually can get tagged onto the genes and passed down in future generations. So you're now having the anger issues, the obesity issues, the heart disease issues, the cancer issues from earlier generations. And the new science has actually shown how this can go 2 or 3 generations into the future. And you don't even know about any of the history of your grandparent or great-grandparent, but it's all coded into these epigenetic marks that influence your genes and could be a source of your anger, of your illness. But we've seen depression, obesity, anxiety, different types of autoimmune diseases. All the science is such breakthrough studies that are happening now to show that if we can remove the tags from previous generations, reverse the process, which we can do. And this is what my focus of my work today is: what can we do to remove those tags, to remove the traumas from our own life and the traumas from ancestral life that build up this anger, that create all of this gunpowder, so that when something in life happens, it becomes a fuse that triggers the gunpowder from the past and explodes as anger, as fear, as anxiety, as heart disease, as heart attack, as diabetes, as all of these possibilities. And if you look at Amazon, FYI, my epigenetics cure book talks about this and gives you a protocol. And we just released that book as a course with videos on it on Udemy. So if you like that, I now actually have the science of quantum embodiment and epigenetics as one course, and then a new one, the epigenetics cure, as another Udemy courses. And there's some really great things there you can go to, or you can always go to my website. And all of these courses and books and things were there. So I'm hoping I'm giving you this picture, but let's see, let's practice. Take a breath, pause. As you pause, I want you to use another skill that is vital that we teach as part of the science of quantum embodiment. And that is to have that self-awareness where do you find yourself on a mental emotional state? 8 to 10, 6 or 7, 2 to 5, or 0 to 1? How do you feel? My goal when working with clients individually, in them going through all the different courses that I have at Udemy, that I have online, is so that you live at a +8 or better your entire life. Anger is +3. And that sends these nasty signals to predispose you to all sorts of illness. Because it's only when your immune system is taken offline through stress, through worry, through anger, that all of a sudden, that now the viruses, the fungi, the bacteria, now the ischemia, and many other types of chronic conditions can take hold because you're no longer in an empowered state. +8 and above, you're empowered, you stay healthy. When you stay healthy, your immune system works at the highest level possible. I live my life to always live at +8 or better, and I've been living there for a very long time. In fact, +8 to me, I don't even enjoy so much anymore because I prefer +9. And I seek to live at a +9 and use the tools and strategies of the science of quantum embodiment that's here in Accessing Your Inner Pharmacy, one of my courses, or wherever you want to go. Self-assessment is one of it, because you have to acknowledge if you're below +8 at any moment in your life, that means you're sending signals that predispose you to illness. Your immune system is offline. Get your immune system back online, functioning, +8 and above, feeling good. And that is with everything. Sometimes you might be +8 in one part of your life and +5 in another part of your life and +2 in another part of your life. And you love it when you're working, you get free and you really get into your own element. But then, gee, the moment you start coming home and you walk into your household, man, the anger, the frustration comes in when you see your spouse or your children or whatever else is going on. Okay, so understand that you will have different segments in different areas, and the key is to have +8 across the boards, because any area that keeps you in a depressed, energetically immune state has the ability to create pain, suffering, illness, predisposition to COVID, to diabetes, to heart disease, to any types of situation. And this is one of the reasons I feel so comfortable traveling around the world. I've been in 5 continents in the last year. I never think once ever about my immunity levels, because I actually have another course called Super Immunity, which is all about just working on your immunity levels using these areas. And I've been using them for the last 30 years. And so I walk around in confidence, not in fear. And Peru, where I've spent an awful lot of my time, okay, was the highest level of death per 1,000 population. And they said it was in my age group category and that I have to be especially careful. It's dangerous for me. And I said, no, that's your idea. You see, your fear is not mine. And I had to set up boundaries and reject it. I said, no, I don't buy into that. Because if I buy into that, now this is the last thing I'm going to give you. Write it down if you want to then focus on this, because it all goes with everything we've been saying. And that is this: where your attention goes, your energy flows, and the manifestation of the quality of that energy grows. So if you're putting your attention on all the shit that's happening online and social media and YouTubes and everything else about all the horrible things happening with World War III going on, with the COVID increases and hospitalizations going on, remember, what you dwell on, you become. You put your attention there, you bring it inside. The more you put your attention on, boom. And back 15 years ago, when I created the program, the Accessing Inner Pharmacy program, I was just starting to see the changes of our connections with the internet with our smartphones and everything. And I started to put it down different tools, limiting use, minimizing screen time on computer, on television, and on phone. And especially to be very certain what you're giving your attention to. And I don't know, when I give my attention to screen time, whenever possible, I put it on those things that make me laugh, those things that give me knowledge to strengthen me. And I don't get into all the different crazy conflicts and controversies of this one is right and that. I don't need to be in that war. I want to be at peace. Despite having a hurricane around me, I find the center, the calm in the center. Practice where your attention goes. Give it to those things that empower you, to those people that support you. And in the meantime, do the inner work necessary to remove all the hidden areas of your past that are filled with anger or trauma or upset or loss. You need to convert all of those negative energies and use them with quantum alchemy and turn it into something positive. So when you look at it, you realize that was the lesson life would have me learn to make me stronger, to prepare me for new events coming. And wow, how lucky I am to have had that opportunity, to have that catalyst, to give me the opportunity to move forward. And if you don't have that and feel +8 in your body, well, then you just work on it and you use the tools. The tools are in Accessing Your Inner Pharmacy book. The tools are in the different courses that I've mentioned to you. So there's many, many things that you can do in order to, if you feel aligned to it, to be able to change your life. It's the decisions you make and the actions you take. Here's just a few of the things that might be available to you. Although I'm so sorry, I have to change that. That WhatsApp number no longer works. I just changed it. So just email me at that. And if another way to get to me, not through WhatsApp, but through Skype, would be, I will put down, because I just changed the number and forgot all about this. How do I get this out there? Dun, dun, dun. Stop share, there we go. Okay, and that is 786-269-2287. But the email is always best.